is writing inequalities of one variable. Tice, what is this lesson titled?
Writing inequalities of one variable.
Thank you, sir. All right, so writing an inequality, I want to remind you what an inequality is, because maybe you're not as familiar with the word. Inequality, this is how you have seen them. You've seen less than, which is just a arrow pointing basically left. And then you've also seen an or equal to, which just has bar underneath it, right?
I know this. Oh, I know this one.
Then you have a greater than. Oh, well, I put less than. It's than, A-N, sorry, greater than, which is just an arrow basically pointing to the right. Now there's a little minor side note that I need you to put in this little chart that you have. Okay? If you don't know that the or equal to's have that bar underneath, you need to make that note. But if you do know that, then you don't need to add it. That's fine. If you're going to add it, just put it right here, or equal to. That way that column is understood. Now on my little side note that I wanted you to put down, underneath here I want you to write in. Always read from the variable. It is important. You'll get lots of problem wrong if you don't read it from the variable. And I'll explain what that means a little bit better here in a little bit. Now I want you to look at that graph. Graph on the first page right there. It's got a solid dot. Okay, we're going to be extending this. That's why I left room on my right hand side. We're going to be extending this here in a little bit. Very first page. So it's got a solid dot. That means that it is inclusive. So right here, I'm going to write the word inclusive. And obviously, if there's something inclusive, there has to be something exclusive. So inclusive means includes. That's why the prefix of that is include. Exclusive means excludes. So exclusive would be the regular less than. So if it was less than 4, it excludes the 4, but it's everything that's smaller than it. If it said less than or equal to, then that would be meaning that it also includes the number that it's on. So if it was less than or equal to 4, it would be 4 and everything below it. So inclusive, just put in here, solid dot, and then we'll have a picture here in a second. And then on exclusive, we're going to put open circle. Okay. So when I say solid, I just mean make sure you color it in. Open means make sure you don't color it in. Okay. So on exclusive, this chart would be included on the column right here. Inclusive is the or equal to parts. Okay. So let's show what a picture of this would look like. I'm just going to make a real simple graph. This is what I expect to see on your graphs whenever you do have to graph it. I want arrows showing that it extends both directions because we're exhibiting a number line here. I need some kind of zero. Okay? It doesn't have to be in the center. It can be a little bit farther to the right, a little bit to the left. But these are the two things that I want to see on every single graph. I want to see arrows and I want to see zero. And then obviously I want your answer, but as far as what I need to see on every single graph is a 0 and arrows. Okay, I don't even care if you do like increments. Like if you have 72 and you have to graph that on a number line, I don't want to see 72 tick marks. I understand that you can count to 72, or at least I hope you can. You learned that in kindergarten, so I don't need to see you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're going to waste your time because I'm not going to count them. Okay. Main thing is if you got it on the correct side of the 0. So if it's a negative number, I want to see it on the left. If it's a positive number, I want to see it on the right. That's all I want to be able to tell, is that you know where your negative and positive numbers go. Okay? So if we were graphing, let's say, -4, that's all I would expect on your number line. Arrows, 0, and the number -4. So we're going to graph x is less than or equal to -4, specifically. So it says less than or equal to, meaning solid dot. So I'm going to put a dot at my -4. Okay, if it is a less than sign, now I'm reading from the variable here, it's on the left-hand side, so this is really easy. X is less than or equal to -4. Less is left. Write it down. Less is left. I don't have any kind of cool saying for right, but you know, less is left kind of covers everything else is going right. Okay, so less is left. Less is left. Meaning, I'm just going to draw an arrow left. Meaning everything from this point that way is an answer to this problem. Everything from this point that way is an answer to this problem. Alright, I'm going to draw a few more graphs on here so that we can just see how to graph them. Put 0 on here. I'm going to put 72 since I already said that number. I'm going to put a solid dot, arrow going to the right. It doesn't matter what you use for a variable, I really don't care. If it doesn't specify, then I really don't care. So you can use whatever variable you want. For consistency, I'm just going to remain with x though. X is this going to be inclusive or exclusive? It's inclusive. It's a solid dot, right? I made a solid dot here, meaning I just made a point. So it is going to be inclusive, so it's going to be a or equal to. Now, I need to decide, is it a less than or a greater than? It's a greater than, because it's not going left, right? So x is greater than or equal to the point that we plotted was 72, and there's the answer. Any questions about that? I'll give you one more. Another graph, another 0. Point 3,752, just because I like that number. It's one of my favorites. And sorry, I put a solid dot there. I meant to put an open circle. And this one's going to have an arrow going to the left. Alright, and use X again. Exclusive or inclusive? Exclusive, because it's got the open circle. It does not include this number 3,752. Isn't it fun to say? Now, am I going left or right? Left is less than. So, put a less than symbol right there. It's not an or equal to. We discussed that already. 3,752. Too easy. Now, I'm just going to give you the inequality, and you're going to tell me how to graph it. Now, this one's going to be a compound inequality. I'm going to say and in between it. So you're going to graph both of these on the same exact line. That's all that means. Don't let it confuse you. All right, here's my number line. And throw in a few things. Always have 0. And then obviously I need to plot 5. Is that going to be to the right or left of 0? It's going to be to the right. It's a positive number. All right, now I've plotted 5. The other number was 0, so I don't even have to really plot that one. I'm going to start at 0. So x is less than or equal to 0. Inclusive or exclusive? Less than or equal to, is that inclusive? Is that including or not including? It's inclusive, right? So, solid dot or open? Solid. I'll make a solid dot right there. What direction does my arrow go? Goes to the left, because less is left. Alright. So there's that. And on the right hand side, where we got x is greater than or equal to 5. Solid or open? Solid. It is inclusive. So which direction does my arrow go? To the right. It's greater than, so we'll go to the right. Now, if you've been looking in your book while we're doing this, you would see that they are doing this like boulder line here. I'm okay with the boulder line. This is why I don't like the boulder line. My first year teaching, somebody thought that they were going to be sneaky. And they said, well, it's boulder right there, so that's the direction that I was going. And then they tried to play off that game where they said that they made it an arrow, and it was definitely not an arrow. Okay? So if you're going to do it, it better be obvious. Okay?
So a bold line.
Extremely bold line, and it has to have an arrow. Sure, why not? I had a lot of people that did it with highlighters. I don't know why, I just helped them, I guess. That's fine by me. Just don't do it in pen, that's all I ask. So that when you grade, you can make corrections. That's the only reason. All right, go ahead and flip to the next page if you have not already. I talked about this a little bit. This is a compound inequality. Basically, a compound inequality deals with two inequalities all at once. You will see and you will also see or, but we don't talk about it too much until we get to it. So I just want to go over the two different forms real quick. Or ones you will see written, this is an and one, right? So an or one, so I'm just going to title this or, you won't actually see the word or near as much. Okay? What you'll end up seeing is something to this effect. So this is where it comes in, where I say always read from the variable, because it's going to make a difference on this one. Anybody confident enough to try to read this one? Don't be shy. Go ahead, Cole.
-3 is less than or equal to x,
Which is less than 2. Now, remember up top where I said always read from the variable, right? So let's see if we can read that again. Colton, you think you got it? Okay, go for it. Always read from the variable. So we would start right here. So let me give you an example so that we're not at all confused. I say read from the variable because it'll help you in this graph. I say x is greater than or equal to -3. Or x is less than 2. Okay, so when I'm reading this, that's where that or comes in. X is greater than or equal to -3 or less than 2. Now, why does that make such a huge difference? Well, when I graph it. So I'm going to plot these points. I'm going to plot -3 and I'm going to plot 2. And I plotted those 2 points. I need to decide if my -3 gets a dot or a circle. Gets a dot, it's inclusive, it's or equal. So what about my 2? Circle. Now I need to decide which direction they're going. If I was just to look at this arrow, and you'd say that was a less than sign, right? Well, when you read from the variable, it's a greater than sign. So when I read this, I go x is greater than goes what direction? It goes to the right, correct? All right. How about the less than? Well, it goes to the left. So look what ends up happening to these two things. If I would just look at the symbol and say, well, that's a less than sign, then both of them would have been going left, right? Left, correct? So you have to read from the variable. Now this is the only thing that I can do to help you really remember how to read from the variable. If you know another way, please share it. Because everything that you've learned to this point just says, look at the direction of the symbol. If it's pointing to the left, it has to be a less than sign. Well, I just told you that this one pointing left is a greater than sign, right? So it's completely different than what you've been told in the past. So I want you to think of it this way. If it's opening towards the variable, for instance, it's eating it, it is bigger than it. It is greater than it, right? If it's pointing at the variable, it is less than it. Okay, if it's pointing at the variable, or if it's a small tip, if you want to go to that point, then it is less than. So I always read from the variable, x is greater than, x is less than, going to the right. Okay? If anybody has a better way to do that at some point, if you just have a eureka moment, please share it with us so that everybody can hopefully benefit from your genius. All right. If you're not already there, be on that next page that says connect. Ecologists study a colony of rabbits in the wild found that the colony doubles in population every quarter of a year. Doubles. Quarters of a year. Okay, so that's every 3 months. At first count, the ecologists found 10 rabbits. After how many quarters will there be 80 rabbits? And how long is this in years? So first of all, we need to establish a variable. Now it says that doubles every quarter. So I think a good variable would be Q, because Q would stand for quarter years, right? So for every Q, there's a quarter a year. So if Q equals 3, it's been 3/4 of a year. Simple enough. Now, I said at first count there were 10 rabbits. And then it said that they double meaning multiplied by 2, right? Every quarter. So 2 to the Q. Now let me show you the difference between 2 to the Q power and 2Q. So this is how they're written differently, but let's just look at the difference in their answers. This one's correct. Don't write this one down. I'm just going to show you when we start analyzing it, okay? If this equals 80, which is what they told us, that it equaled 80, how long is this in years? So you have to be very careful when you answer this one. So, if we solve, I'm going to put these side by side instead of on top of each other. If we solve this problem, I have to get rid of this 10 first. How do I get rid of a multiply by 10? I have to divide it by 10 on both sides, right? Division, property of equality. So there it goes, right? Donzo. Over here I have 2 to the Q equals 8. And then I just have to ask myself, you have a question? I need to make a better tail on my Q, don't I? Now there's 2 ways to solve this. Let me tell you the way the book will have you do it. It'll say rewrite your 8 as a power of 2. Now remember that 8 is really 2 times 2 times 2, right? So it'll tell you just go ahead and write 2 to the 3rd. And then it's fairly obvious to see that Q is 3, right? That's just substitution. That's the way the book wants you to do it. If you use a little common sense, you just say 2 times itself, how many times is 8, and you come up with 3. I'm okay with that. I'm still okay with that. You don't necessarily have to show your work to do this, but it is substitution property. That was like number 8, maybe? Anywho, we find that Q is equal to 3. Now, you don't have to write this one down, so just follow along with me. We still would have to divide this one by 10. Bam. 2Q equals 8. And then if I divided it by 2, which is what my next step would have to be, Q would have had to have been 4. There's already a big difference in our answers, okay? So they would have gone through another reproductive cycle if we would have solved it the other way. Okay, so this way is incorrect. This way is incorrect. What this tells you is that it doubles every time, so it's multiplying it by 2. So if the first quarter at the beginning there were 10, the first quarter there would be 20. The third quarter there would be 40. We're doubling it every time. Okay? So third quarter we would get that 80. On this one we're just end up multiplying the 2 by a different number each time, which would make it go up, but not near as fast as this one would. Alright, so we solved this problem using an equal sign. I want to show you specifically what the problem was asking. It says, ecologists study a colony of rabbits in the wild and found that it doubles in population every quarter of a year. At first count, the ecologists found 10 rabbits. After how many quarters will there be more than 80 rabbits? And how long is this in years? So if I say more than, that's an indicator of using what operator? More than. Greater than, right? There's going to be more than 80. So the reason I solved this using an equal sign first is to show you that it wasn't any different. I just put in a greater than sign in there. It didn't say more than or equal to, did it? No. So everywhere that I had an equal sign, I would just go ahead and plop in a greater than. So Q being quarters of a year, greater than 3, we would have to solve this using that little bit of information. It said, what is this in years? So 3/4 of a year is how long? Think about it. I just told you how many months were in a quarter of a year. It's 9 months, right? Because a quarter of a year is 3 months. If I wanted to find this, I'd just take 3/4 of a year and multiply it by a total year, which was 12 months, and it would give me 9. Okay? So, to solve this problem, yes, Q is greater than 3. If I wanted to plot it, I could put it on a number line with an open circle, arrow pointing to the right. But it wants you to be sure that you address the problem the way it asked it to be addressed. So, yes, quarters of a year is 3. But to answer the question, it must be 3/4 of a year. Because at the end of the question, it says in years. In years, specifically. Okay. Flip page if you haven't already. I'll do another similar problem, and you're going to tell me if there's an indicator for an inequality here. There should be. This is an inequality lesson. Joe subscribed to a new service that streams music over the internet. They call this Pandora. The service costs $2.95 per month, but Jonah's rate is reduced by 15 cents for every new subscriber that he signs up. If there is no limit to the discount, how many users must Jonah recruit in order for him to stream music for free? Now, is there an indicator, and I want you to talk to your group about this, there's an indicator in here somewhere of an inequality, meaning less than or greater than. Find it. Go. Reread the problem and then try to figure out what is telling you. Could be a sentence, it could be a word. What? It's going to be equal to 0. So he wants it to be $0 or less, right? He wants it to be $0 or less because he wants it to be free. Now, what inequality tells us that it is going to be free or less?
Less than or equal.
He says less than or equal to. So let me just write that in and see if that looks right to you guys. I heard less than or equal to. First, I'm going to go with it. His price, which is $2.95 minus however many people he subscribes, right, is going to be less than or equal to 0. We want that to happen, right? He says, how many users must Jonah recruit in order for him to stream for free? Free is $0. So, do you want to stick with your answer, Tice, or you want to change back to that other one?
I want to stick with it.
Stick with that answer. I like it. All right, so if this is true, then I want to know what in the sentence tells us this. We have to find it. Go. Let's start actually answering this problem. How am I going to do it? I got to get this thing by itself, first of all. So how am I going to get rid of 295? Got to subtract it to both sides. Now, I know this is going to be a confusion, so I want to see, what is 0 minus 295?
Negative 295.
Negative 295. Good. Handled that with a little bit of ease. So, I have a negative 0.15 up here. If you don't deal with decimals good, make sure you put a 0 in front of that.
Okay, I have a question. Since you know how now we're going to divide negative 2.
So, let's just go ahead and write it down since he already said it. We're going to divide by negative 0.15.
Would it be possible to take across the... What is...
There's a trick coming, so I'm gonna address this. This becomes goneness, right? X. Then I need to divide 2.95 and 0.15. What'd you get? 19 2/3. So I'm gonna put it as a decimal since we've been in decimals. 19.6 repeating. Positive, right? Because we divided a negative by a negative. Ooh, there it is. We have to.
It'd be a negative.
It's not a negative. It is a positive. We can't have a negative number of people, right? So that answer just wouldn't make sense if it was negative. No, we can't. But when I write down my inequality, check it out. It says x must be greater than or equal to 19.6. Now, Hannah was shouting it over here from the rooftops very quietly, which is a weird thing to do from a rooftop. She said, change the direction of that sign. Why did we do that? Well, first of all, in this problem, it makes a lot more sense to say that it's got to be greater than or equal to 19.6. But The reason I had to do that is because I multiplied or divided by a negative across the inequality. So we're going to write that down. If you multiply or divide by a negative, you must switch the sign. If you multiply or divide by a negative, you must switch the direction. Do we mean to put direction in there? The direction of the sign. Alright, so if you multiply or divide by a negative, you must switch the direction of your sign. Okay, so that's what we did here. We multiplied or divided. We actually divided in this case by a negative to both sides. So we had to change the direction of our sign. And in this problem, if we didn't do that, we definitely wouldn't have made any sense, right? Now, to give a full rounded answer, he needs at least 20, right? But to give an exact answer, this is exactly what they want us to put down. So to answer the question, how many people does he need before his subscription is free? 20 or more, right? That's a lot of people. Alrighty. Do you believe I've given you everything you need to get this lesson